Okay, welcome to section 4.7. What we want to do is we want to today look at turning an ordinary sentence and translating that into a categorical language. So we have four terms: all A are B, no A are B, some A are B, some A are not B. We've talked about them in great detail. If we're not able to say it in these terms, then it means nothing to us. So what we have to do is be able to then take regular language and transpose it or translate it, whatever word you want to use, into those four statements that we just looked at. So it's easy to explain and a lot harder to do. So we're going to try and do and explain both at the same time. So all categorical statements have at least or have two terms. So all A are B, some A are not B. Categorical statement has two terms. We need to find the two terms. And then we have to find out how they're related. So what is the sentence saying about the two terms? So the key thing that we want to look at is what is the sentence saying about the two terms? So A says that all members of one are members of the other. E, they have no members in common. I, they have at least one member in common. O, they have at least one member not in common. So we have to think of it in those terms. So as we do that, let's see how it works out. So let's look at an example. Let's say that the example is you shouldn't eat pork rinds. Okay, we have two terms. The first term is things that you should eat. And then secondly, we have pork rinds. So it's saying that they have no members in common. Two things that you should not eat, or you should not eat pork rinds. So we're talking about things that they do not have in common. So we're saying no things you should eat are pork rinds. So in other words, you shouldn't eat pork rinds. So no things. We have to put it into a term that fits into our categorical language. So we have to put our terms into that, our terms being things you should eat and pork rinds. So therefore, no pork rinds are things you should eat, or no things you should eat are pork rinds. It works either way. Because if we remember, conversion works both ways on a no statement, right? No things you should eat are pork rinds, no pork rinds are things that you should eat. So you can look at it both directions. You just have to make sure it fits with if you're going to change the order, that it fits within the operations that we've talked about in section 4.4 and 4.5. Okay, so sometimes we have terms without nouns. Okay, we must remember that a term is a word or group of words that can be used as the subject of a sentence. Sometimes we have predicates that are written as an adjective and without a noun. And so we must add a noun in order to make the predicate a term. So as an adjective, the predicate is not a term. So we can't say that all sports cars are red. So all S are R. We can't say all sports cars are red. We'd have to say that all sports cars are red vehicles. So we have to somehow put a noun on there in order to make that adjective, or that adjective, become an actual term. So let's look at some examples. So the first example would be some runners are fast. So we could say some runners are fast people. Some dogs are black. So we could say some dogs are black animals. We take the predicate, we make it into a sentence with a subject. Some black doesn't make sense. Some dogs are black. Okay, so if you're writing a paper to me, I'm going to look at that and say some dogs are black. Okay, so some dogs are black, but black what? Are they black poodles? Are they black German shepherds? Are they black animals? Are they black mammals? Are they black dead dogs? I mean, there's a lot of ways we could finish that sentence. It's a complete sentence, but it's not really complete because we're just making a statement that is descriptive of the dog, but we're not saying another noun to really phase what that description is based on. Okay, then we have non-standard verbs. The only verbs allowed are and are not. Okay, so we can't use any other verbs than that. So that's the only way it works. All A are B, no A are B, some A are B, some A are not B. The only two verbs that we can use. Other verbs and verb forms then need to be converted into somehow saying are. So some tigers will eat people. So some tigers are animals that will eat people. Okay, so even people eating is probably not a good way. Some tigers are people eating is probably not a good way because we want to keep it as close to it as we can. So some tigers are animals that eat people. All dogs bark becomes all dogs are animals that bark. Okay, so once again, we're just changing it to a statement that has are or are not in it. And so those are two good examples, probably two of the easiest examples. The next thing we look at is singular propositions. Singular propositions are about individuals rather than a group. So what we have to do is we have to turn a singular proposition into a category by using the following or similar wording. So persons identical to, places identical to, this type of a thing. So an example of that would be Paris Hilton went to rehab. So if we want to use a singular proposition, what we'd have to do is we'd have to say all persons identical to Paris Hilton are persons who went to rehab. Tomorrow we will go to the movies, so all times identical to movies, or to tomorrow are times we will go to the movies. Okay, and once again, we have to keep things in order, so make sure you think of it in terms of orders. I am hungry, so therefore all persons identical to me are persons who are hungry. Okay, so once again, we're taking the singular and turning it into a category. It's not Paris Hilton, but it's all people identical to Paris Hilton. Not the easiest thing to do. So keep that in mind. With singular things, we turn them into groups. Then we have adverbs. The Detroit Tigers will win the World Series. All teams identical to the Detroit Tigers are teams that will win the World Series. So it's just saying it may not make sense to us, but we have to put it into a term that has all A, R, B. And that's what this statement has. So here we have all. Teams identical to the Detroit Tigers is our subject. R is our copula. And then teams that will win the World Series is our predicate. So we've turned this statement, the Detroit Tigers will win the World Series, into a categorical statement. Then we deal with adverbs and pronouns. So spatial adverbs are translated into places. So where, everywhere, anywhere, nowhere, everywhere, etc. where. He is nowhere to be found. No places are places he is found. Okay, so he is nowhere to be found. We're just turning it into an E statement. No P R F. No places are places he is found. Another aspect would be temporal adverbs. So we talked about spatial. Temporal is based on time, and so we look at when, whenever, anytime, always, never. A detective always gets his man. All times are times that a detective gets his man. So once again, we're dealing now with a time, not a space. These can be a little bit tricky, and so you have to kind of think through them a little bit. We have pronouns and adverbs and pronouns. So pronouns such as who, whoever, anyone, no one, translate into persons. So whoever can understand this section will do well in the course. All persons who understand the section are persons who will do well in this course. So what we've just done is we've just taken out the who, and we've turned that into persons, right? We've translated that in. The other thing we have to do is deal with pronouns such as what, whatever, anything, nothing, and these are always translated into things. So whatever gets you through the night is all right. Sounds like a line from a song that I think the Beatles might have sung. All things that get you through the night are things that are all right. And then we have unexpressed quantifiers. So when a quantifier is not present, then what we have to do is we have to interpret the statement to see what the speaker means. As long as it refers to at least one, then we have to use the word some. So keep that in mind. If it refers to at least one, we have to use some. If it refers to nothing or no one, then we would use no. Otherwise, it's some unless it says all. Okay, so keep that in mind. So a couple examples. Cats are independent animals. Here we're saying, what does the speaker mean? Okay, that's what we have to think about. What is the speaker trying to say? So interpret the statement that we see the speaker meaning. Cats are independent. So he's talking about some cats, all cats, no cats. So we look at it saying all cats. So all cats are independent animals. So we've really just clarified the quantifier that wasn't really stated directly. Cats are the animals in the shelter. or cats are in the animal shelter, excuse me. So here we look at it and say some cats are animals in the animal shelter. Okay, because we're not referring to every cat. Not every cat's in the animal shelter, but some are. A zucchini is a vegetable, so all zucchinis are vegetables because we know that if we have a zucchini, it has to be a vegetable. A zucchini was used to make this dish, so some zucchinis are things used to make this dish. Non-qualifiers. So standard non-qualifier qualifies something all, no, or some. So few pandas remain in the world. Some pandas are animals that remain in the world. So we're just really identifying it. Many eagles are some eagles. Many eagles now thrive in the wild. Some eagles are birds that now thrive in the wild. Not all cars are gas guzzlers. Some cars are not gas guzzlers. All people are not vegetarians, therefore some people are not vegetarians. All cows are not carnivores, therefore no cows are carnivores. So just ways of could be said, could be explained. Look at the intention. The intention is all people are not vegetarians. So the intention is saying some people are not vegetarians. Okay? Because not all people are not vegetarians, not correct. Some are not, but I'm not a vegetarian. So therefore, that statement's not. Some people are not vegetarians. Now that could include that I am a person who is not a vegetarian. Okay, then we have conditional statements. If A, then B translates to all A are B. If it rains, then the grass gets wet. All times it rains are times the grass gets wet. If it snows, we won't go to the movies. No times that it snows are times we will go to the movies. So self-explanatory, but once again, you just got to make sure you think through it. An exclusive proposition includes only, none but, none except, no except. In these cases, the predicate is after the terms listed above. So, only fools buy bottled water. So all people who buy bottled water are fools. None but the fastest escape the rain. All people who escape the rain are people who were the fastest. None except the most diligent were able to find the orchids. All people who were able to find the orchids are the most diligent ones. No animals except ferrets are allowed on the plain. All animals allowed on the plain are ferrets. Okay, so what we're just really doing is we're taking exclusive propositions and we're turning them into terms that we can work with. Then we have the only. The phrase that comes after the only is the subject. The only people who will pass this test are the people who studied hard. So all people who will pass this test are people who study hard. So once again, we got to remember that if the phrase that comes after the only is the subject. The only people who will pass this test. Therefore, we know that the subject is all people who will pass this test. Okay? Clowns are the only things that scare me. The only things, the subject must follow the only things. Therefore, all things that scare me are clowns. Okay? And then we have except. All except S are P. And all but SRP are translated with statements. So all except SRP is no SRP. All but SRP is all non-SRP. Okay, so all people except Hell's Angels are welcome to the concert. Okay, so no Hell's Angels are people welcome to the concert. And all non-Hell's Angels are people welcome to the concert. So once again, we're just looking at it. Okay, so keep that in mind. There's really no other rules that apply. This is not an easy section. We'll talk about it more in class. Bring your questions with you. Have a great day.